so excited to have you here tonight to honor our 5 inductees in the Hall of Fame class of 2023 for their excellence in the field of journalism. Tonight, we'll be honoring Patricia Henniot, Corey G. Johnson, Robin Mead, who I'm trying to get into the ballroom, Jack Nelson, and Scott Slade. I already like how this night is going. This seems like a great crowd, and applause is encouraged throughout the night. This is truly a celebration. We would also like to thank our MC for the night, Lisa Rayam from WABE. We always know it'll be a fun night with Lisa. So we are going to get started tonight with some welcome remarks from our 2 co-title sponsors, Coca-Cola and Southern Company. So first up, we're going to welcome Todd Terrell, External Communications Director at Southern Company. Welcome, Todd.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, let me say I have a lot of friends in the room, and a couple of them are being honored tonight, and it's just so awesome for me to get to be here again. I will mention one of them, Scott Slade. Congratulations to you, my friend. So I'd like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for welcoming Southern Company to this special occasion as we induct the 5 well-deserved honorees. We've representatives here from both Southern Company and Georgia Power. They're up here at table 5 if you need any help with your media relations. It's been great to partner with you, both local industry and national media, and work alongside of you over the many, many years. So this is an important night, and we're proud to serve as a longstanding partner to the Atlanta Press Club in support of everything they do for journalists. No matter if it's print, broadcast, digital, the Press Club does a phenomenal job of recognizing the journalists of yesterday, supporting the journalists of today, and fostering the journalists of tomorrow. So thank you. One final thought and I'll go away. As the industry in our world continues to evolve, the importance of neutral, accurate, and accountable journalism's really never been greater in this world. Prospective journalists and those just embarking on their careers need sound and trusted examples of which they can emulate as they forge their own path forward. So the work, careers, and integrity shown by tonight's honorees is really serving as a cogent inspiration on how to do this job and how to do it the right way. So on behalf of the 27,000 Southern Company employees who stand behind me and alongside me, thank you again to Julia, to Paula Hovader, to the board of the Atlanta Press Club, and all of you for including us in this incredible evening. Congratulations to the honorees.
Thank you again to Todd and to Southern Company for your unwavering support. Our other co-title sponsor this evening is the Coca-Cola Company, and I would like to ask Lauren Sayeski, Vice President of Regional Public Affairs, Coca-Cola North America Operating Unit, up to say a few words. And while she comes to the stage, we'll play a short video.
good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I think we already started off with some whoops and some cheers, so I'm going to do it again for the honorees tonight. So it is really special to be here with the inductees, Patricia, Corey, Robin, Scott. It's a bit rowdy tonight. And of course, the late and beloved Jack Nelson, whose family is with us this evening to celebrate and honor his legacy. So at the Coca-Cola Company, our purpose is to refresh the world and make a difference. For us, that is really primarily about building thriving communities and why we support organizations like the Atlanta Press Club, because as we just heard, your mission and what you do for this community and for the people whose jobs it is to tell our stories is so critical. I am myself somewhat a rare unicorn. I'm an Atlanta native. I see your work, I listen to your work. I've had some big fangirl moments already this evening. But I've spent the last 10 years actually living outside the country and outside of Atlanta. And I have carried you with me on my phone, on my PC, because you have kept me informed about what's going on in this great city. I left a decade ago with brown hair, and as a single lady, I've come back with gray hair, a French husband, a British kid, and a dog from Yorkshire. The reason I bring that up, though, is because myself, I'm reacclimating to this city, and I'm also seeing it through the eyes of my family, who are a bit international. And what I see and what I'm experiencing is a city that's only grown in its vibrancy, a city that was always a bit the jewel of the South, but now truly is a destination for the nation and a magnet for international investment, and that is quite inspiring to come back to as an Atlanta native. So thank you to everyone in the room for what you do to tell the critical story of this city, where we are now, but probably more important, where we want to be in the future. So an extraordinary group being recognized tonight. Thank you for all that you do, and congratulations.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Coca-Cola. Also, thank you for the commemorative Coca-Cola bottles. Please take those with y'all. I wanted to somehow put cheers, y'all, on there, but we did have a character limit, so I couldn't fit it all on. Now we're gonna enjoy some dinner, and we will be back shortly to start the program. Enjoy. All right, everyone. Hope you have enjoyed your dinner. Please continue eating, but we are gonna get started with the night. The Hall of Fame is Atlanta's Press Club's biggest fundraiser of the year. It's also our most visible event, where we truly put journalists in the spotlight to honor their work. Simply by being here this evening, you are helping us support a free and a fair press, and recognizing, along with us, the importance of integrity in an industry that is constantly under fire. Thanks to supporters like you, the Atlanta Press Club is still pursuing its mission to serve the evolving professional, educational, and social needs of our media community, fostering journalistic excellence and advancing the public's interest in and understanding of a free press. We could not do it without you here tonight, so we thank you. I would also like to say a special thank you to some of our sponsors. So many of you came in this year to help us celebrate this amazing event, and we are truly so grateful. We have our diamond sponsor, Norfolk Southern. You know, there is a competition on who can be the loudest, so we do encourage. There we go. Home Depot, our gold sponsor, or our platinum sponsor, which unfortunately a few of them could not be here tonight, but we thank them. Thank you to our Home Depot table. Our gold sponsors, Cox Media Group and WSB Radio. Edwina and Tom Johnson, who send their warmest wishes to us. They also, unfortunately, could not be here tonight. CNN, big CNN crowd tonight. And also our gold sponsor, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. We would also like to thank our silver sponsors, Georgia EMC, Ashland University, and Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. You will also notice in tonight's program a page with all of our annual sponsors listed. Many of them are here tonight, and we want to thank you also for being a part of this evening. I would also like to recognize some special individuals in the crowd. We do have a few of our previous Hall of Fame inductees, so if you are one, please stand. I see Hank down here in the front. I also would like to recognize our Hall of Fame committee. If you are on our Hall of Fame committee, please stand. This is truly a great group. I'm not sure many of you know, but we really work on this event all year long. We start in January, and then we culminate here with this amazing event. So it's really a fabulous group of volunteers. And last but certainly not least, I would like to ask our Atlanta Press Club Board of Directors to stand. So many of them are here with us this evening, and we just want to say thank you. This is truly a group of dedicated volunteers. I feel so privileged to work with them and be a part of them. They are engaging and experts in their field, and I truly could not do my job without them. Now, I would like to turn it over to someone else that I could not do my job without, which is our chairperson of the board, Keith Pepper, publisher of Rough Draft Atlanta.
We know that is not true, by the way. It is simultaneously surreal and a huge honor to be standing up here as the chair of the board for the Atlanta Press Club, as a native Atlantan as well, and Julia is also, so a lot of us here in the room. I grew up in a media-obsessed household. Every morning we got 3 newspapers delivered, and I was so cool in high school that I personally paid to get the Atlanta Journal delivered in the afternoons. So that's how cool I was. So it's amazing that I've stumbled into this role. It feels very, very special. And this evening is even more remarkable because when I was 16, I finagled my way into a job at WSB Radio, starting as a kid who wrote sports trivia questions for a very short-lived afternoon sports trivia show. And then my first real job where I got paid, which I won't even tell you how much I got paid, was as the producer, a 23-year-old producer for Atlanta's Morning News with Scott. So in high school, I was getting the afternoon paper with my own money, and when I was 23, I was waking up at 3 in the morning to hang out with Scott and Condis and the team. So thank you guys for being here. The Atlanta Press Club is really stronger than ever. And that is really due to the amazing support and engagement of our members, our sponsors, and our board. And since she will not toot her own horn, Julia Boyd, our executive director, has really transformed the day-to-day management of the Atlanta Press Club into what we needed to be as a professional association. So please, a round of applause for Julia. And she also will not toot her own horn, but she will reach for your wallet. Paula Hovatzer has really, I've got her cards in here, I'll give them out to you. Paula continues to tell the story of the Atlanta Press Club and our mission better than most of the accomplished storytellers in this room. So thank you, Paula. So I want to just thank all of you guys for being here and being engaged and supporting and promoting a responsible, sustainable media ecosystem here in Atlanta. As you guys all know, these are really wild times for the media industry, but they're especially difficult for the news business. Mistrust in the media, coupled with fierce economic headwinds, make doing what we do harder than ever, but at a time when doing what we do is more important than ever. So thank you guys for your engagement. in what we're in tonight, but also in the year-long programs of the Press Club. In 2024, we will celebrate our 60th anniversary, and once again, it will be a year for the esteemed Loudermilk Young debate series that we produce in partnership with Georgia Public Broadcasting, so please keep an eye out for more information related to our 60th and also to the upcoming debates. So now on to the show while you're here. This year, I've had the honor of introducing most of our newsmaker interviews at our luncheons. So the mayor, the Speaker of the House, Consul General of Israel, the Director of the CDC, but I get most nervous when I have to introduce one of the best and the most respected voices in our community, and the first voice that I hear each morning, Lisa Rayam of WABE. An Atlanta broadcast legend, Lisa is the host and senior producer of Morning Edition on WABE. Previously, she spent more than 2 decades at Fox 5, where she was a reporter and an anchor. She has, of course, won numerous awards for her reporting, as well as recognition for her community service. She is a member of the Atlanta Press Club, which is good, and the Society of Professional Journalists and the National Association of Black Journalists. And, no pressure, but she is one of the funniest people I know. So please welcome my friend Lisa Rayam.
Nervous. You got to be kidding me. He is one of the funniest people I know. Keith, thank you so much for that. I am so honored to be here tonight. This is a wonderful occasion. The Atlanta Press Club honoring the best of the best. This is a special evening for them, but you have to help that meeting. So wherever I go, I make you promise this. Raise your right hand after me. I promise this evening, I am going to celebrate the best of the best to the best of my ability. And if I do not celebrate the best of the best, point to the person on your left and say it's all your fault. I'm going to hold you to that promise tonight. I am going to hold you to that promise. This evening will give us the opportunity to learn more about 5 incredible journalists who have impacted our city, right, our state, and our world. This is the 13th year for the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame event, which honors journalists throughout Georgia's history. So now it is time, the moment we have been waiting for, to honor our 5 inductees. For each of these inductions, we will play a short documentary about the honoree. Next, we will invite the presenter to come to the stage and give a brief speech, and then present the award, brief speech, and then present the award to the inductee or family member who will come to the stage and accept the award. Are you ready? Our first inductee of the evening is Patricia Jandois. And I know I said it correctly because we practiced several times together.
Chile confirmó estar al tanto de la información.
For millions of viewers in Latin America and the United States, Patricia Hanot was the face of news in Espanol, whether on Telemundo, CNN, or Univision. In war zones, natural disasters, or holding dictators accountable, her broadcast transcended barriers.
She obviously is Colombian, has lived in the United States for years, is bilingual. She may speak additional languages I'm unaware of. But she's one of these people that easily crosses the cultural spectrum. She's used to speaking to people, across the social divide. She comes from a country that's had an extremely difficult history, and complicated history. And she's learned how to negotiate, the wrinkles, you could say, in the relationships that are inherent in the relationship between the United States and its immediate neighbors and vice versa.
Patricia was born in Colombia, received degrees from universities in Bogota and Cambridge before starting her career on Colombian radio and quickly making the hop to TV. For more than a quarter century, she was relentless in her pursuit of interviews with newsmakers both celebrated and notorious. From Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez, and Augusto Pinochet, to Colin Powell, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Bill Gates, and Richard Branson.
And what was so interesting is that there was no ideology behind the interviews that she was requesting, because sometimes she would be interviewing people from the right in Argentina, and then on the others you would see her talking to Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. Something that always amazed me, I still remember before Hugo Chavez died, he was giving a press conference in Caracas, I believe, and then there was, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 journalists asking questions. But then as soon as Hugo Chavez, who ended up being a dictator in Venezuela, as soon as he realized that Patricia was there, he immediately talked to her directly, and then they had the possibility of doing an interview surrounded by 30 or 40 people. And it was really interesting because her questions were always tough, always difficult, but she had the respect even from dictators like Hugo Chavez. That was something that always amazed me.
Muy buenas noches desde Caracas. Pues bueno, después de que las celebraciones.
As a woman in the media industry, Patricia racked up Emmys and international recognition, winning both the White House Champions of Change and United Nations Women Together Awards.
El presidente dijo que donde ganen gobernadores opositores.
And is still revered for her courage in the field, while covering stories such as the Israeli elections in the 1990s and unrest in Gaza and the capture of Saddam Hussein, which impressed the toughest journalists and world leaders alike.
Her willingness to go everywhere and do any story. At that time, tensions were not quite as high as they've been with the Israelis and Palestinians, but they were still there. But, Patricia wanted to go to Gaza. She wanted to go to Gaza and do, how are the Palestinians viewing this? Or go to Ramallah, how are the Palestinians viewing this? And it just, again, it showed her courage. One story that didn't end so well, unfortunately, I was in Baghdad when they got Saddam Hussein, and yet again, they sent Patricia over to do the story. Well, it was incredibly difficult to get in to Baghdad. It was just very dangerous. So you could either drive from Jordan, which was a long journey that was fraught with peril, or you could fly to the airport, and getting from the airport to the workspace was fraught with peril. So, but yet again, she flew in, sat at the airport, I think, for 2 or 3 days. Security deemed it not safe, and it wasn't safe. So she unfortunately had to turn back. But she stayed for 3 days at an airport trying to get in. I mean, she had determination to try to get in.
Thanks to CNN and to CNN en Español. Thanks so much. This is fantastic.
Now retired from newsroom, Patricia Hanyot spends time with family and keeps up with her global audience through her YouTube channel. Her impact has set the pace for the future of women in journalism.
I would like to add my voice of recognition to Patricia Hanyot and congratulate her for being included in the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame. I have been a journalist all my life and also a public figure, former president of Colombia. And I've known Patricia as a journalist and as a public figure. And I can say that she deserves to be in this Hall of Fame because she is a great journalist, always seeking the truth, always very objective, and she has this ability to maintain a certain distance that makes her much more credible and allows her not to be influenced by social media and other pressures that every journalist has to bear with today. So, Patricia, congratulations. You deserve this recognition, and all Colombians are very proud of you.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Patricia Hanot into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
Now, I will please ask Tony Del Campo, President of the State Bar of Georgia and partner of Del Campo, Grayson Lopez, LLC, to please come to the stage.
You know, to ask a lawyer to be brief is a high challenge, and I will do my best. It is my absolute joy and privilege to introduce the first Latina to be inducted into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame. You know, I first met Patricia on a soccer field, and she may not remember that. So when I went down there, she was watching her son, Tadeo, who is here. He was playing soccer with my son at Concord. And I met her, we got along, but I have to admit, I did not know who she was. Because I got most of my news from the English-speaking outlets, so I didn't know who she was. And that was in the fall, probably over 20 years ago. So a couple of months later, I went to Peru, which is where I'm from. And I took my whole family there, and there was something going on, as there's always, all of you journalists here know, there's always something going on around the world. But there was some big event going on, and so my family was tuned to CNN en Español. And lo and behold, Patricia comes on the screen. I said, I know Patricia. And my uncle says to me, ¿Tú conoces a Patricia? You know Patricia? I was like, yeah, she's my friend. So for the rest of the trip, my cool factor went way up because I knew Patricia Hanot. She was supporting Tadeo then in soccer. She has supported Tabata, her daughter. She is a wife of 33 years to Miguel, and that is probably, she would tell you, her biggest accomplishment. But what we are here to celebrate is her journalistic endeavors. And for almost 40 years, she has been at the forefront of informing Spanish-speaking people around the world. Not the United States, around the world. And she did start when she was 5 years old, so she was very accomplished. And during her 27-year tenure at CNN en Español, she was the face of the network. We say, you know, some people say she was the Anderson Cooper of CNN en Español, but I like to say Anderson Cooper is the face of CNN in English for Patricia Hanot. She eventually became senior anchor there and covered the most important world news, and the video took a lot of my talking points, so I was like, you know, what am I going to say now? But she did serve as a phenomenal journalist and covered all the most important world news, ranging from wars, terrorist attacks, presidential elections, natural disasters, and many more. As you saw, she interviewed most of the heads of states of Latin America, the presidents of Latin America over a quarter century, including, as you saw, Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez, and she asked them some very tough questions. And she was the voice of the people. She was the voice that needed to be heard throughout Latin America and throughout the world, because oftentimes without journalists, without what you do and without what Patricia does, we don't have information. And as much flack as journalists take, you do the work that's important. You are the bedrock of our democracy, and I want to commend all of you and all of the inductees today. So she interviewed, as you heard, Colin Powell, Augusto Pinochet, who was a right dictator of Chile, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Bill Gates, Dan Brown, and many, many others. After leaving CNN, she joined Univision, and that is when the American Spanish-speaking audience really got a taste for Patricia, because those that did not have CNN en Español, everybody watches Univision. And so Patricia became known to everybody else. So the whole world knows Patricia, and she's an example of journalistic excellence throughout the world. She started at the Noticiero Univisión, Edición Nocturna, which is a nightly news program, and for the weekly primetime news magazine, Aquí y Ahora. She was also the host of Janio PM, the first ever Spanish language news program available on Instagram TV in the US. She has received so many awards, I can't possibly name all of them, but I'll try to hit the highlights. She's received 3 Emmy Awards. She's received the National Journalism Award from the Club de Periodistas de Mexico, which is a Mexican journalist club. She's received the Golden Mike Award from the Radio and Television News Association of Southern California, and the Premio Inte, which is a Spanish language television industry award for Best Female News Personality. She's been named in the Hispanic Media's 100 list, an annual recognition of the 100 most influential Spanish language journalists and news media executives in the US. While in Colombia, she received many, many awards. She was the winner of the Premio Simón Bolívar de Periodismo, which is the Simón Bolívar National Journalism Award. But Patricia is not just an outstanding journalist, an accomplished journalist. She's an unbelievable human being, and she is my friend. She serves as the president of the nonprofit organization Colombianitos, which is dedicated to help underprivileged children affected by the violence in Colombia. And every year she raises money for those children that are hurting, that have been affected by the war in Colombia. And for her humanitarian causes, she has received numerous awards, including the White House Champions of Change Award, as well as the United Nations Women's Together Award. Patricia has been recognized by numerous organizations and received various awards in Colombia, including Premio CAFAM de la Mujer, Colombiana de Corazón, which is Colombian from the heart, Mujer del Año, Woman of the Year, Mujeres de Éxito, Women of Success, and the Manuela Beltrán Order of Merit. Patricia, as you heard, is now retired from the studio, which we all hate, because we hated to see her leave. We don't see her on TV as much anymore, but she's beginning a new chapter in her career, launching the new YouTube program, ¿Qué pasó con lo que pasó? What happened with what happened, which in English, it just does not have the same ring. But what basically that means is, what happened with those news that affected us in the past? You know, those news that affected us, but as you know, in this 24-hour cycle, things come and go, and we forget about those things. So what she's doing now is she's going back and saying, what happened with those things that affected us a month ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, and we're all excited about that. She's also working on her own production company and finishing her first book. I cannot say enough about my friend and journalist, Patricia Janot, and I hope you welcome me, or you join me in welcoming her and inducting her to the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame. Patricia.
He spoke for her, so I forgot. Okay, go ahead. There you go.
You're making me work harder. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tony, for that kind and lovely introduction. I mean, who better than you to give it? Your achievements of excellence have broken every barrier for the Latino community in Georgia. We are very proud of you, and what an honor to call you my friend. So thank you, gracias desde el fondo de mi corazón, and I'm moved, I'm already moved. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish this 10-minute speech. I already timed it. Members of the Atlanta Press Club, ladies and gentlemen, thank you from the bottom of my heart for this incredible honor. To stand before you tonight as an inductee into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame is a memorable moment and recognition that I will value the rest of my life. We have to applaud your commitment to great journalism and your support to free speech and free press. Your job is vital, as we all know, in these times when the role of media in understanding events in this world of misinformation has never been more crucial. Coming from Bucaramanga, Colombia, South America, I guess I can now say, I made it. I made it. To get here, I overcome a great challenge at a very young age. My mother told me when I was 3, I disobeyed her. I put on her high heels. I fell, rolling down the stairs of our home. She not only said, I cut my tongue, she said they took me to the hospital to get stitches. And then there, when I opened my mouth, she said, they saw your tongue hanging on by a thread. So thankfully, the stitches work because I'm here. After a career of almost 40 years on television. Way to go, not bad. I started working in Colombia, as you say, and as you saw in that beautiful introductory video, first in radio, then in television. Back in the years when our worst enemy, Pablo Escobar, launched a demented terrorist war against politicians, presidential candidates, judges, policemen, journalists, innocent Colombians, and his mafia enemies. All that to avoid extradition to the United States. He succeeded. But before getting killed by Colombian special forces, he took the lives of around 4,000 innocent Colombians, using paid gunmen, car bombs, explosives that even took down a commercial airplane full of passengers. Those were the kinds of stories I was covering on a daily basis during my first years in journalism. It just makes me very uncomfortable to tell you this story. When I met my boyfriend, Miguel, now my lovely husband, back in those days, late 80s, he was living in Los Angeles. Then I decided to move to the States to get a master's degree on political science. But as I was applying, I was lucky that a position as an anchor at the Univision local station, Channel 34, was available. I interviewed for the job, and I got it. My mother used to tell me, if you got a job and a husband in the same city at the same time, that is strategic planning. So you go for it. What are you waiting for? So I left my country and came to the States. When I arrived at Channel 34, the type of news I was covering was a downtown fire or the redistribution of school districts, and I was not really challenged. I was ready for more, and after they let me go, I applied for a job at CNN. I got it amid a very competitive group of applicants. I didn't know I was literally entering the doorway to the world with a magic key in the form of those 3 red letters. I was in awe when I got to the CNN atrium and got on that long escalator that took me through this big sphere, globe simulating the Earth. And I said to myself, I'm in the big leagues now. By coincidence, my first assignment, I will never forget, was the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I knew I had to make a big impression because the expectations were high about my work. So I found out that Fidel Castro, not in this interview, this was my second interview, that Fidel Castro was holding a press conference at the summit. He was one of the most sought-after presidents at the summit. I said to myself, I need to apply that strategic planning that my mother talked about to get Castro to talk to me. So this is what I did. I thought I had to wear the brightest color so I would stand out. That was my first choice. I wore this electric green blouse. At the press conference, instead of sitting in the first row, as all my colleagues, I decided to go to the back and not sitting down. I stood up. So at the back of the room, when Castro started talking, I decided to move from one corner to the other corner. With that bright green blouse, it was impossible. It was really impossible that he could not see me. So he talked for an hour and a half, and I walked from right to left for an hour and a half. At the end of his remarks, he stood up, and all my colleagues rushed with their microphones to ask Castro. And here I come from the back, rushing from the back to the front to reach him. Guess who he talked to first? He looked at me and said, Oye, chica, ¿qué estaba pasando allá atrás? Hey, girl, what was going on back there? You kept moving. I got his first remarks, and I also got a few more questions. So those are the advantages of not having to wear a dark suit. I learned that day that anything is possible if you just give it a try. I did something similar when the Colombian presidential candidate, Ingrid Betancourt, was released from his 6 years of captivity at the hands of FARC guerrillas. Our plane was late. We arrived to Bogota when the press conference she was holding at the French embassy had already started. We were not allowed to enter the building, so my only chance was applying again my strategic planning, again. I imagined she would see me when she left the embassy. I stood in the middle of the street. The car she was in had to stop, otherwise it would have run me over. I just stood in the middle of the street. I said, I need to get this woman. All of a sudden, she saw me. She lowered her window, and she invited me to join the caravan of the cars that were taking her to the airport. And I got my exclusive one-on-one with Ingrid Betancourt. I believed everything was possible in a colorful life representing those big red letters. I had a wonderful tenure at CNN. I covered Latin America. I interviewed presidents, many of them, and important people that were shaping the future of this hemisphere. I interviewed innovators, writers, social leaders, artists, you name it. However, the most watched and successful interview that I conducted was the one I had with my mom. As you heard, she's a wise woman. That taught me a big lesson. People connect with human stories. We don't forget emotions. We don't forget how we felt in specific situations. That is why I decided to embark upon a new form of storytelling, recording personal memories that vibrate in people's hearts, and at the same time, preserve family stories, roots, and legacies. Speaking of families and family, the most important part of my life, I stand here today because of the unconditional support of my family. They have been my pillars of strength. I don't have enough words to thank my husband, Miguel, my son Tadeo, my daughter Tabitha that is in LA, for their understanding during the long hours over so many years and my unpredictable travels to report from so many corners of the world. I'm very aware of the sacrifices we made in terms of family time. Now that I'm retired from the new studios, I hope life gives me enough years ahead to try to catch up. To them, to my lovely friends in the back of the room, who also have embraced me with perspective, with solidarity, with laughter and humor. Your company through these last decades has made my life much easier and joyful. Thank you so much. I obviously owe a debt of gratitude to the mentors and colleagues who believed in me, guided and inspired me every step of the way. We saw a couple of them in that beautiful video. I am very fortunate to have worked with some very passionate journalists that knew we had a very important role to play in our tribal communities and societies. Along with them, we try getting different perspectives, pursuing the truth, challenging the powerful, amplifying the voices that need to be heard, exposing injustice. I want to express my special gratitude to Mark Meltzer and to Gina Espinosa for presenting my name to the Atlanta Press Club. It is about time a Latina joined this distinguished ranks. To be included into the Hall of Fame alongside such legendary figures is not just a personal achievement, but a testament to the power and importance of journalism in our democracy. It means a lot to me. I accept this honor with a profound sense of responsibility to continue upholding the values that define what we do and who we are. Again, to the Atlanta Press Club, thank you for this incredible privilege. And to my fellow inductees, congratulations on your well-deserved acknowledgement and recognitions. Let us continue to defend what we do best, telling stories that matter and leave a lasting legacy that reinforce the notions of accuracy, context, and credibility for the younger generation. And why not add that wise advice by saying, listen to your mom. Thank you.
So Patricia would have killed me had I glossed over that very eloquent and gracious speech. Thank you so much for what you've done for the industry, particularly what you've done for women. Give her another round of applause this evening. The beauty of this moment is that we get to hear Corey G. Johnson's name a second time. Our next honoree is Mr. Corey G. Johnson.
From the halls of Ronald McNair Senior High School in Southeast Atlanta to the student government podium at Florida A&M,
the prize goes to Corey G. Johnson.
To sharing a 2022 Pulitzer Prize. When it comes to problem solving and telling stories that serve the public, Corey Johnson has a reputation for leaving no stone or document unturned.
You can find anything if you like to read. And that was the thing we did in our home constantly. We read and we played board games. and things like that that challenged you?
And I think Corey loves documents too, because you couldn't do it if you didn't love documents. But he connects with human beings. He is a people person. And he always wants to tell the stories of people. And so what makes him so good is just his connection with the people who are that the story is about, but also the people that are around the story. So he makes sources really well. People give him tips. People give him documents. People give him understanding and are helpful with him. He is one of the most generous journalists I know.
Corey is in the prime of his career. On the heels of projects across the country that exposed lax school construction in earthquake-prone areas.
The state has admitted that they have done these illegal surgeries, but we don't actually know who they did them on.
And sterilization of female inmates in a California prison.
Poisons are everywhere inside this Tampa factory, Florida.
At the Tampa Bay Times, he and two others led the project called Poisoned, which revealed how Florida's only lead smelter endangered workers and polluted the community. That Pulitzer-winning story led to government investigations, lawsuits, and millions in improvements. And this year, he reported for ProPublica about radicalization within the gun industry. His colleagues say Corey is a watchdog who will not be denied.
Corey was always really just a relentless reporter, very curious, willing to go the extra mile, willing to not take no for an answer. I think he came to the Diversity Institute with that attitude. Even though he was late, he was not going to take no for an answer. I wasn't inclined to give him a no, but I think had I done so, he probably would have challenged. I think this is kind of his nature. And so over time, just watching him grow from being, a beginning reporter to being more, on the intermediate level, he eventually ends up in California, does some tremendous work. He always was very good about checking in and keeping you abreast of what he's doing. If he had questions about anything, he would pose those questions.
But Corey's journey to the top of the journalism field was not an easy or direct path. After college, while looking for a job, he began searching through archives at the King Center. He met Professor David Garrow, who connected him to editors at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution to put his natural skills to use.
Literally a couple days before Christmas, they called me up out the blue and said, look, we found this program in Nashville. It's a fellowship by the Freedom Forum that actually trains people who are interested, like yourself, how to be journalists. And I jumped at it. In 2005, I went to the program, and after the program was over with, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution gave me my first journalism job in Greenville, North Carolina, and that's how I got in.
Now, after 20 years in the business, Corey Johnson has won many prestigious awards, including a National Headliners Award and a Salute to Excellence Award from the National Association of Black Journalists. But his work continues. As a co-founder of the Ida B. Wells Society, sharing his investigative craft with aspiring and mid-career journalists of color.
Now he will pass on everything he has learned and earned to the next generation of journalists of all stripes. Since the murder of George Floyd and so many other minorities, I again realized that American journalism, and by that I mean the mainstream media, still has a long way before recognizing and validating the untapped talent that we African Americans represent. Tonight's event is sweet because among you stands your future dividends when you tap the intellect, ethics, and humility of someone hell-bent on comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. With that, I am Dwight Cunningham, and I'm proud to say Corey's mentor.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Corey G. Johnson into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome presenters Nicole Carr, award-winning investigative journalist at ProPublica and journalism professor at Morehouse College, and my friend Hank Klivanoff, Pulitzer Prize-winning author, Peabody Award-winning podcast host, and professor of practice, creative writing program, Emory University, to the stage, please.
Plenty of time. Good evening. It's lovely to be here with Nicole and speaking on behalf of our dear friend Corey Johnson. So I met Corey at the point where this left off, when Corey had been working with David Garrow, and many of you know David Garrow, Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Burying the Cross, Martin Luther King, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and did another massive book on Roe v. Wade. And if you know David's work, you know that it's built on an incredible amount of reporting and research. And in that regard, you couldn't have a better match as a researcher than Corey Johnson, working with a dynamo like David Garrow. So I looked at Corey's CV recently, and I noticed that it basically it opens in 2005. Now, most people in this business, particularly if they've reached the point of a Pulitzer Prize, have been in business a lot longer than that. But Corey got that start in 2005 as a researcher, and David saw in him something that suggested he needed to be in the news business. He needed to bring the power of his scrupulous mind to the news business. And he brought together Sean McIntosh and me and said, let's meet and let's talk. Well, it took us a little while at the AJC to figure out, are we in a position to bring on board someone who's strictly a researcher? Or maybe he should be a writer as well. And we weren't quite sure. And at that point in time, I have to tell you, I was working on my own book, trying to close it out, and I would show up at Emory. I wasn't even teaching at Emory at the time, but I would show at Emory Library doing research of my own, and I'd be there till midnight. And guess who I'd run into? Corey Johnson, working on whatever he was working on at midnight. And I remember one time, I got home and I realized, I forgot to get something at the library, and I was going to have to get there the next morning, like at 8 in the morning. And I get there at 8 in the morning, and guess who's still there? Corey Johnson. And then Corey wanted access to the AJC morgue, our own research library. And so we got special permission from Jenny Everett for Corey to come in. And I saw Corey go in and didn't think anything of it. The next day, Jenny came to me and said, Hank, so this fellow you had come in at the library, I said, yeah. He said, he checked in around, I think, 4 p.m. I said, yeah, I don't know, but yeah. She says, and he checked out around 6 a.m. What do you think he's doing? I said, he's researching the hell out of something, and I hope he's getting a little shut-eye while he's in there, And Corey it didn't matter where the story led, where the research went, he was going to go there and find it. And so I was very indebted to David Garrow. After Sean and I met him and we talked, and I think it was Sean who said, there is the Diversity Institute in Nashville. Some people will know if this is a myth or a true story, but the Diversity Institute was very proud that it took non-journalists and trained them, particularly non-journalists who are minority journalists or potential journalists, and trained them. And I think the famous story was that there had been an Otis elevator operator out of Pittsburgh who went through the program, supposedly, and became a great journalist. And so Corey went over there, and I believe Sean and is Wanda Lloyd here? I believe she might be, but if I'm right, Sean came to me and said, they're already full up in this class, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get Corey in. They're full. And I said, well, let's do whatever we can. And she came back and she said, it's okay, it's taken care of. And I still don't know what she did, Sean, but thank you for being a finagler and got Corey in that program. And they were pretty soon praising him. They would call us and say, you know, the star of the class. And if someone else was in that class who's here, I apologize. But they would say, the star of the class is Corey. He's just got this gut instinct about what to do. Well, what's going to be next? Well, it was, you know, frankly, we like to think at the AJC at the time, we wanted 5 years of experience. I mean, we do have our standards. Is he ready? We weren't sure. So we got him a job in the Cox chain at the Daily Reflector in Greenville. That was North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, right? And pretty soon we're hearing from the people at the Greenville, North Carolina, that this kid you got, excuse me, to me you're still a kid, okay? He's phenomenal. You know, he's winning statewide prizes. We haven't won these things like this in years. And he's doing great work, and then from there, I knew, did you go to Fayetteville, I believe? That's right, I didn't see it on here. Why are you hiding that? Okay. Right. He went to Fayetteville, and they're suddenly winning statewide North Carolina prizes. And it just became clear he had something special. And I got a call from a friend of mine at the Center for Investigative Reporting, Robert Rosenthal. He said, what do you know about this guy, Corey Johnson? I said, get him now. Catch lightning in a bottle and take him. And he did. And that's when he went out west, and they did the story about the lack of safety in all these schools that were on fault lines in California, okay, threatening the lives of thousands and thousands of school kids. And it's gone on from there. And he's relentless and just a sweetheart, okay? If you know, you think of tough guy investigative reporters, he's not that. But he's just as sure-footed as you'll ever find in an investigative reporter. And it's a true honor to be able to be here and introduce Corey along with Nicole tonight, and who will pick up the story from where I left off, okay? Did I leave you anything? Right.
Where's Lisa? Okay, give me 1 minute. 1 minute, 2 minutes.
3.
Take 3. Go over time. I don't think it would be an overstatement to say that journalists like Corey Johnson have not only saved the lives of readers and viewers, entire communities, but journalists like Corey Johnson have saved Black journalists' lives and livelihoods and saved your newsrooms from losing us. Now, Corey, we know, is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He belongs to an elite, exclusive club of truth tellers and change makers. And there's like an even more exclusive club within that exclusive club that can count his membership, because it's no secret that there are a few Black journalists who claim that honor. I don't have the figure on the number of Black journalists who have been a part of reporting teams like Corey's that actually won the Pulitzer last year for that incredible reporting on how that Florida battery recycling plant quite literally poisoned an entire community with lead emissions. They exposed injustice, held power to account, gave voice to the voiceless, the sick and the dying, the dead. And they led to that plant receiving massive fines, and that work helped workers at the plant who could not get access to their own health records. You helped them do that. But we're not talking about a large figure in that group, and we're for sure not talking about a large figure in the category for which he won that prize, investigative reporting, because we're almost non-existent as official members of the types of investigative teams that do the type of work that lead to those types of prizes. And individually, Black journalists have only pulled 29 Pulitzer Prizes in the prize's 106-year history. I'm citing a Poynter Institute piece here. And most of those prizes were awarded for commentary, some for photography, most often in the matter of race. Now, race is the same thing that can often have newsroom managers question your ability to objectively cover your community. And race is the same factor that led mainstream newsrooms to integrate because they knew only Black journalists could provide the necessary context, access, and reporting needed to cover the biggest story of the century, the civil rights movement. Now, Corey and I work for what many consider the premier investigative reporting outlet in the country, and we're one of half a dozen Black reporters with bylines. I'm talking about the reporters who primarily write the investigations, not the incredibly talented specialty team reporters. We're one of six, two of six in this national newsroom. And a 2022 Pew Research study noted that just 6% of the 12,000 working journalists they surveyed identified as Black, slightly more as Hispanic, slightly less as Asian, aligning with a 2018 study that 77% of newsroom employees identify as non-Hispanic and white. So you know, when we land in these spaces, it's a big deal. Not because we're incapable, not because we're less talented, or in need of hand-holding, but because newsrooms remain largely white spaces here in 2023. But the impact Corey has is not just because of his dogged Big J journalism, the type of talent that is undeniable, yet often overlooked in spaces. Look at everything he did before he was considered ready. Did you just hear that? His impact is huge because he comes as his full self to every table. My students in the AUC at Morehouse, Spelman, and Clark, Atlanta can't believe I know a Corey Johnson, and that he comes from where Corey Johnson comes from, and that you graduated from a historically Black college or university, as I did. And when he, Ron, Nixon, Topher Sanders, and Nicole Hannah-Jones realized they were always the only ones at the Investigative Reporting and Editors, or Reporters and Editors Conference, they co-founded the Ida B. Wells Society for Investigative Reporting in 2017. It is to increase and retain journalists of color in newsrooms, but the training, the data training, the records training, the sourcing, the digging, everything you need to be a good journalist, that training is for everyone because we understand that this multiracial democracy requires a strong multiracial press. It was named for the actual mother of investigative and data journalism, a courageous woman whose work investigating the politics and race behind lynchings was not recognized by the likes of the Pulitzer Board until nearly a century later. It may have taken the Pulitzers 100 years to recognize a journalist like Ida B. Wells, who ran so journalists like Corey Johnson could fly. But it won't take us 100 years or even 100 accolades to recognize a talent like you, my friend. Welcome to the space where you belong. Welcome to your place in the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
So I intentionally came up here without any kind of notes because if I did, y'all wouldn't be getting out of here until the year 2045. And Lisa would have to literally tackle me off this stage like the Atlanta Falcons would do. I've been trying to figure out which cry face I was going to give y'all tonight. Was I going to give you the Michael Jordan cry face? Was I going to give you the Halle Berry accepting the Oscar cry face? Or was I going to give you the Tammy Faye Baker with the mascara come down? I don't got no mascara, but I'm feeling mascara-ish right now. I'm going to speak for the heart. It's going to be relatively brief because I don't want Lisa to get me. But I would say that, first of all, thank you to the Atlanta Press Club. Thank you to everyone that was involved in this decision. You saw me, and what I'm so grateful about is by seeing me, you no doubt give hope and inspiration to others that they may one day be seen for the hard work that they do. And my speech, if I have a speech tonight, is going to really be about the people who see you before you even become the you that you're destined to be. And all the people of all kind of racial makeups, geographic makeups, gender, who do that every single day, quietly, sometimes loudly, in order to make journalism a fairer, more equitable, more humane, more connected industry. You heard Hank, who probably said it much better than me, but I want to say this, and I want to acknowledge Wanda Lloyd, Robbie Morganfield, and Dwight Cunningham in particular, because all three of those wonderful human beings were fantastic journalists in their newsrooms. And they walked the walk of diversity when sometimes diversity would fall in and out of favor, when it would sometimes be a buzzword. For these journalists, it was a way of life. It was who they are. And sometimes they paid the cost in tears, blood, denied opportunities, being overlooked. And for each of these excellent journalists, and particularly Wanda Lloyd, who used her credibility and her wondrous reputation to go in the back room and to fight for the creation of a program that would give people who didn't go to journalism school and didn't have all the credentials and maybe didn't have all their isms and osms in place, to give those people an opportunity to learn and then be a part of this wonderful craft that does amazing things. And it's because of that my life was saved. At the point that I'm digging into documents, I was lost. I didn't have any direction. I probably was about to get kicked out of my house for drinking up all the orange juice and not putting it back. I didn't have any sense of real purpose. And I can remember when I found those documents, some rare documents, and Hank and Sean McIntosh had me met me at a lunch, and I'm showing the documents. I'm just so excited, and I'm like, look at it. And Sean said, this is really investigative reporting. And me, with all the wisdom of Solomon, I said, investigative reporting? What that is? Can you get a job in investigative reporting? Because I need a job. I need a job bad. And it was from that moment to this moment, I got pulled into a space and pulled into my purpose in life. And from that, been able to serve and also be served. And so if you all have the stomach, I would love for Wanda Lloyd, Dwight Cunningham, Robbie Morganfield, Hank Klibanoff, and Sean McIntosh to please stand, and the audience in the room give them all a rounding, sounding applause. There are plenty more people who see others and who go to bat to fight for folks. But at that point in my life, there was nothing on paper that said I should get a break. And yet, I got a break. And I'm eternally grateful for every one of them because they saved my life and gave me an opportunity. I also want to thank the folks who often don't get thanked in moments like this in a real meaningful way. But to do this work, it requires some tremendous sacrifice, as we all know. Sometimes you're sacrificing time at home, and the people closest to you feel that the most. I'm talking about your family. And in my life and my family, stood in the gap for me when what I was doing didn't make a lick of sense. I'm working a job, but I still can't pay the bills. What is that about? And yet and still, they showed up for me. They covered my back. They paid my bills. They wiped my tears. When I couldn't quite understand why this and why that, they said, just pray on it. God has you. You're standing on the shoulders of so many people before you. And so, my mother is here. I'm my mother's only child. She told me that I was her miracle baby. And I just want her to know that you're my miracle mom. My father is sick, so he couldn't be here, but if he was here, he would be grinning from ear to ear for all kind of reasons. But one reason in particular, he worked for well over 25 years at Southern Company, and when he retired, he ended up being a project manager. And so for Southern Company to be here showing love to journalists, my father would be tickled pink. He would be so proud that they would be here showing up for his son. My family, I got plenty of family on all sides of this room. We got y'all surrounded, so if anybody want to act a fool, just don't, right? My family from high school, middle school, junior high, my church family back, I'm an Atlanta boy through and through. And so when you reach into that big pot and you acknowledge a different range of people, not only do you acknowledge those people, but you acknowledge all the people behind them who propped them up, who loved them up, who enabled them to be able to do this work. And so it means that much more to me for this honor, to be able to see them be honored because they certainly deserved it. And last but not least, I want to thank you and thank my daughter for being here because she is the next generation. If I was my mom's miracle baby, my daughter Naija is my miracle daughter. And I'm just so proud of her and happy to know all the great things that she's going to do because I see her just like someone saw me. And so with that, I want to spare you all the rest. Journalism is super important, very much so at this time in life. I hope that we can continue to do the things as a family to stand shoulder to shoulder to try to get this truth, try to get these facts, and try to bring it to the people in a way that connects not just with a small group, but the broader, wider groups, people who may not even be subscribers or who may not even be viewers, but absolutely need us. They need that information to be smarter, better, wiser, and more connected to the world. So thank you, Atlanta Press Club, for this honor. I deeply appreciate it.
Corey, I would never rush you off this stage. You are a trailblazer, and we appreciate you, and thank you for all you do. Another round of applause for Corey G. Johnson. When I worked in Orlando, Florida, my news director at the time said, Lisa, the way you deliver the news is just as important as the facts that you present. Meet people where they are. Just talk to them, and then they'll get it. Robin Meade has one of the best deliveries in the world. I couldn't wait to get up and watch her on CNN because she was just that good. Our next honoree, ladies and gentlemen, Robin Meade.
From Miss Ohio and a Miami TV station, where she covered the 1996 Olympic bombing in Atlanta, to the morning of September 11, 2001.
It hit directly in the middle of one of the World Trade Center towers.
Her first day on the job at CNN's Headline News, and December 5th, 2022.
This show is ending after today. More on
her last day on HLN's Morning Express. Robin Meade has brought poise and tact to newsrooms amid some of the biggest stories of our time.
So, it's the first time, yay, my mom and dad are in Ohio, get to see me. And I just remember those live pictures of the towers and the first plane crash. And I remember thinking, oh, man, something must be so wrong with the air traffic control system, And I think a lot of us were telling ourselves that. And so I have to start doing that story. But when the second plane hit, it just really changed the entire atmosphere in the newsroom.
There's a reason why she is America's longest-running anchor of a national morning news show. Her colleagues say it's because she cares about the way viewers feel and embodies her most famous phrase, morning sunshine.
And when people are on the treadmill, at the gym in the morning, how are they going to feel when I'm delivering this news? And she thinks about that every single minute of every single show that she does. And I think most people would never know how much thought goes into not only what gets delivered, but how she delivers it.
Robin expressed her musicality over the years, recording her own albums and singing with the likes of David Foster.
You ready? Now.
Darius Rucker and Zach Brown. But her journalistic talent speaks for itself too, like her reporting on the Ahmaud Arbery trial.
23 witnesses.
The one that always comes to mind for me with Ahmaud Arbery, and the reason this comes up for me is Robin was one of the first in the national media to interview his mother. And what Robin, of course, had her own questions that were amazing. But what I think made her good too was she understood that there were perspectives that were different from hers.
She is a beloved storyteller.
Morning, sunshine. Thank you so much for being with us.
With good humor, a zest for life, and reverence for family.
Come on. Tonight, we reconnect with loved ones. Like 95-year-old Anna Stell, the oldest.
A favorite of audiences and advertisers alike.
I don't feel a day over 84, but it was just wonderful.
Whether skydiving with George H.W. Bush on his 85th birthday.
Be honest.
I wasn't worried about him because he's just cool as a cucumber. I was a little worried about myself.
Or goofing around with her longtime CNN pal, Sanjay Gupta.
Robin, I'm a doctor. I take care of patients, but you, my friend, are good medicine for the masses. You really are. What you do for people, how you help them, how you help heal them, with your demeanor, with your words, with your very authentic empathy. It is not common, and it's hard to replicate. And I love it, and I love you for that.
I've never worked in an environment where you could, cut loose with someone and still also be professional when that was necessary. And just the level of respect that I have for her from before I started, but certainly after working alongside her for almost a decade. It was just, the impact it's had on who I am as a storyteller is hard to measure.
So I think the band's playing me off here, Robin, but just want to say congrats to you for staying true to yourself throughout, whether you were an executive or a producer or a viewer or the President of the United States. We were all a lot better off for you doing news your way.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Robin Meade into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
And she sings as well. I would like to welcome presenter Dr. Sanjay Gupta, multiple Emmy Award-winning chief medical correspondent for CNN, host of the CNN podcast Chasing Life, associate professor of neurosurgery at Emory University Hospital, and associate chief of neurosurgery at Grady Memorial Hospital, to the stage. How do you have time to be on TV? How? What a pleasure. Oh.
Good evening, everybody, and morning, sunshine. It is my honor to be here to help induct the wonderful Robin Meade into the Atlanta Press Club. I'm really excited for you. We all encounter people in our lives who make a lasting impression. They're unforgettable and they just sort of stick with you. The air seems a little lighter when they're around. The world seems a little bit brighter, even for just a little bit, when you get to spend time with people like Robin Meade. She is that person in my life, and I think for so many of us. I had the good fortune to start at CNN right around the same time as Robin. And as two fellow Midwesterners now living in the South, we were trying to figure things out, and I think our shared background really bonded us together, not to mention the rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan. Go Blue. Yeah. She is authentic, she is genuine, she is sincere, and I don't say any of that lightly. What you see on TV is the real deal. She is whip smart, and she has a razor sense of humor. I have been cut by her wit many, many times. She's no nonsense, and she's breezy at the same time. It's hard to do, actually, to do both those things at the same time. To give you a sense of this, one of the first times we sat down and we were chatting, we were talking about our transitions to the world of journalism, and I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, back when I was in Ohio, I gotta be careful how I say this. So back when I was in Ohio, I had a small butt and big hair. Now, several years later, I have small hair and a big butt. She said that to me. We barely knew each other, and I remember thinking I'm not normally rendered speechless, but here we go, and I had just met a lifelong friend. She's a unique talent. Like a lot of people, started in local news, worked really, really hard before she got to HLN. She learned the ropes. I think what's always made her stand out is that she just has this innate sensibility about things to make things really informative and really relatable at the same time. She's just curious about everything. You have these conversations with her, and our conversations would go in all these different directions. And that's why she could do breaking news for several hours every morning. This is not easy. Things change on you constantly when you're doing the morning show. You're kicking off the news cycle. It's hard work. But she could do that, and she could jump out of a plane with the former president as well. She salutes our troops on a regular basis, which I salute her for. It's really incredible. But she never felt rehearsed. I still am amazed by what she was able to do. I think what it was about Robin, what it is about her, is that she always has other people's best interests in mind. She really does. That's the real definition of empathy, and she embodies it. And I'll tell you, the rumor is that I'm her favorite guest. Regardless, she is my favorite anchor, and she is loved by everyone both on and off screen. And as much as I love Robin Meade, my wife may love her even more. And here's how I know. This one time I was in a taxi cab in Iowa, and I get in the car, and the guy looks in the rearview mirror, and says, "Hey, it's really great to see you, Dr. Gupta." And I was thinking to myself, we have at least one viewer in Iowa. But then after a minute, he continues and he says, "And I got to tell you, I really love your wife." Now, this made me sit up and take notice. The guy loves my wife. Was he trying to tell me something? Is this how I find out about some illicit affair? "How do you know my wife?" I asked the guy. "Oh, yeah, from television. Robin, right? I love her." So much to unpack there. The guy thought I was married to Robin, me. Married to Robin Meade. But that's just the kind of person Robin is. She creates this instant chemistry with people. But here's the amazing thing. So I tell my wife this story, and I really feel like when I told her, it could have gone in many different directions. No one likes to hear that their husband has been confused to be married with another woman, especially if that woman is a former beauty queen, Robin Meade. But here's the thing. My wife also thought it was hilarious because she really loves Robin Meade even more than me, which is a lot. I've told you this so many times, Robin. I admire you. I respect you. I am better because of you. I'm a better communicator. I'm a better journalist. I'm a better human because of you. It was really hard when you left. It really was. But as I said in the video, I may be the medical correspondent, but you provided good medicine. And you took really good care of your audience for so many years. So on behalf of a global collective audience, I thank you. And it is my honor and privilege as her colleague, and I think more importantly as her friend of more than 20 years now, to help induct the inimitable Robin Meade into the Atlanta Press Club. Please welcome her.
Dead air. I know what you're thinking, that the lady on the tape had brown hair. Now you're going, blonde hair, huh? I know what you're thinking. She's going to Fox News. Nah, after 30 years in television as a brunette, I did go blonde over this past year of being off the air. I mean, it's just because I could. It's for fun. It didn't hurt anybody. But I will tell you what did not switch in this past year, and that is what's inside. I'm just a kid from the middle of a cornfield who is so blown away that you would induct me, the Atlanta Press Club, into your Hall of Fame, into this class of the Hall of Fame. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm so moved by the tables that are here, my colleagues that are here, and the colleagues who spoke in the video. And Sanjay, that you would run from surgery, from watching your kids perform, and be here tonight and fight the traffic. If the current inductees have any say, I would like to throw his name into the hopper as a future Hall of Famer. And thank you to everybody who's here for carving time out of your schedules to be here, whether you traveled from Decatur or East Cobb or Ohio is here, or New York, or the far, far away land of Alpharetta. Thank you, I am so honored, so honored. You know, you never know what part of your own story is gonna be the pivot until you look back. I'm here because I peeked off to somebody else's paper in high school. It's true, oh yeah. Growing up, I was inclined, as you can hear, I was inclined toward music. Preacher's kid, singing in the church, you get the picture. By the time I reached high school, my strict dad said, "You can be anything you want, but I don't want you being a rock star, recording artist, or a country singer." He was saying in the most loving but strict dad way, if you're going to do that, I don't want that life for you. So I'm thinking to myself, well, damn it, now what? What am I gonna do? For a while I thought, I could be a music teacher. And that is until someone correctly or incorrectly said, to be the music teacher, you have to learn every instrument in the marching band. And I thought, that is not gonna happen. So by now I am a senior in high school. I'm still not sure, what am I gonna do with my life? And along comes the aptitude test. Do you remember those? The tests that tell you what your strengths are and what you're good at. The day that we were handed back our results, mine showed that I excelled at reading comprehension, creative writing, and grammar, and historical application of past facts. What it said was, your strengths would do well in the field of communications. Write down what job you're interested in that field. And I come from a blue-collar family. My dad was also a diehard UAW member who worked in a car parts factory. My mom was a trailblazing plant manager of a sewing factory. Communications did not ring a bell as a job. So I leaned over to my little classmate and I said, what you got? I looked at her paper. She had the same results. She wrote in the blank, broadcast news anchor. And I thought to myself, that is a fine idea. And that is where my whole life came from. So thank you to my classmate for sitting next to me and having the answer. All these years later, it's true, all these years later, I'm so grateful though to the viewer who allowed us to come into their home every morning. If you perhaps were a viewer, I hope that you felt that we were protective of you. I hope that you felt like you had an emotional guardian on patrol for you every morning at such a vulnerable time of the day. You're half dressed, you're half awake, you're not sure if you want to go back to bed or carry on with the day. You, the viewer, you were my first thought in the morning and you were my last thought every night. I mean, after all, without the viewer, we would be fired. Oh, wait a minute, we were fired. But I guess we would have been fired sooner. All right, thanks to all of the people who worked on this show over the years. I mean, my teammates who are in front of the camera, you made work not work. You're so darn talented. The people behind the camera, I've said it before, but the news doesn't write itself. It doesn't copy edit itself. It doesn't executive produce itself. It doesn't direct itself. It doesn't executive assistant itself. It does not happen without you. Without you, there would have never been us. I'm so grateful to our bosses who, throughout the many regimes, lots of bosses, throughout the years who either started this show or they allowed it to continue and really allowed us to be ourselves. Thank you. I have to acknowledge all the husbands and the wives of the journalists in the room here, because if you're married to a media member, I know it cannot be easy. Living with somebody who has incessant curiosity. The 20 questions that I know I just wake up with every day from the word go. You know, most nights, at least when it comes to a morning show anchor, that's not easy either. Most nights, the spouse is the one eating dinner alone. They have to tiptoe around while you're sleeping. They are dealing with the mayor of Cranky Town by the end of the week. My husband called it Meanie Mead Fridays. Because I was so cranky by the end of the week, I lost so much sleep, so sleep deprived. But I would say, you know, there are benefits to being married to the morning news anchor. You're a bachelor every night. You eat what you want. You do what you want. You watch what you want. The only rule that my husband ever had, my husband of 30 years, the only rule that he ever had was, you have your butt home in bed by the time I get up and go to work. That's all. And only one time did he ever break that rule. He had clients in town. I went to bed. They were going out to dinner. When I got up at 3, nobody was home. It's dark 30 and the phone rings. Hey, honey, I know I'm supposed to be home, but don't worry. I'm at the Pink Pony. So I'm at the Pink Pony, and I'm drinking water. What he was drinking was the least of my worries. But I credit that man, Tim, that I even took the position here at Headline News. When it was first offered in 2001, I didn't want it. Yeah, the pay for that first contract anyway was less than I was already making in local news in Chicago. And they couldn't tell me what show I would be doing if I agreed to come. I was going to turn it down. But my husband stepped in and said, "You gotta take it. It's the CNN family. Don't you see? There is so much potential for upside here." I was looking at the facts up front. He must have had a wide-angle lens, looking at what a move to Atlanta would become. And he was right. The job became a career, the move became a life, and the city became now our home longer than the cities in which we grew up. When you reach a certain age, everybody asks you, do you have any words of wisdom for the people just starting out in the industry? I didn't think I was that age. But here's what I've learned. Number one, artificial intelligence is so mind-blowing. And it might be able to write a coherent story with the facts that already live out there on the internet. But it's never going to have what you, the younger journalists, have. And that is the human heart. That is the connection, that is the empathy that makes you a great journalist, better than any machine could ever be. Number two, no matter how much light is shining on you, always give credit to everybody else because nobody gets anywhere by themselves. Number three, find you a partner who is down for the ride because it can be a wild one. And number four, close to my heart, remember why it is that you do what you do. And that is for the benefit of the viewer, the listener, and the reader. And to our former viewers, I miss you. You will always be my morning sunshine. Thank you to the Atlanta Press Club.
She rocks. Give her another round of applause. Robin Meade. Next, we will posthumously honor Jack Nelson.
Most really successful reporters in Washington.
One of the most important journalists of the 20th century, that's how Jack Nelson was often described across his 55-year career. A reporter hell-bent on holding officials accountable, whether those in charge of Georgia's mental hospitals in the late 1950s.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
Alabama Governor George Wallace during the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s, or agents in the Watergate scandal in Washington, D.C. in the 1970s.
Jack loved finding out stuff that he wasn't supposed to know. And he loved catching politicians or sheriffs or district attorneys or the FBI or anybody else, loved catching them in a lie. He was like a bloodhound. It was instinctive, and once he was on a trail, you could not shake him off. He was absolutely relentless, and he was a marvel to behold. And when he was dealing with public officials, he was tough as nails. He taught all of us, he taught me a lesson, several lessons in journalism, but one of them was always aim high. You know, if this is something the governor's involved in, you talk to the governor. You don't talk to his aides. You don't talk to somebody 3 levels down.
Born in Alabama, he was raised and started his newspaper career on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and worked as a writer for the Army before moving to Georgia to join the Atlanta Constitution as a reporter in 1952, where he exposed the abuses of Milledgeville Central State Hospital, including experimental treatments on patients without consent and drug use by doctors. Jack Nelson won the Pulitzer Prize for local reporting in 1960.
He became a beat reporter at the Constitution, and he stayed there a long time till 1965. He, of course, won the Pulitzer Prize in 1960 for exposés on Milledgeville Hospital, and which put him in great stead with Rosalynn Carter forever. And he took a Neiman and went to Harvard. And what he was at the Atlanta Constitution was a significant investigative reporter. He went deep. He exposed a lot of corruption. He brought investigative reporting skills to the newsroom. He was a leader in the newsroom. And he exposed so much corruption around Georgia that it's funny to read the articles and scandals he uncovered. It wasn't too long after that he was plucked from the Atlanta Constitution staff to become the regional bureau chief, the bureau of the Los Angeles Times, and out of Atlanta.
You have to disperse. Your orders to disperse.
For the Los Angeles Times, he covered Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama in 1965 and drew the attention of Wallace. In 1970, it was FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover who had Nelson in his sights for a story about the Ku Klux Klan targeting a Jewish community in Mississippi, which later became Nelson's 1993 book, Terror in the Night.
A voice came over the unit that said, they've got us.
But it was Nelson's 1972 interview with Alfred C. Baldwin about eavesdropping on the offices of the Democratic National Committee at the Watergate complex in Washington that crowned his career.
But when he was talking to ordinary people, and this was the case with his greatest exploit during Watergate, the interview with Al Baldwin, that broke a big part of Watergate into public before anybody else had, beat Woodward and Bernstein cold on that piece of the story, which they were later graceful enough to admit. He had to go talk to this reluctant witness, Alfred Baldwin, who had been part of the burglary, and persuade him that it was in his interest to talk to the Los Angeles Times, of all newspapers, not the Washington Post, not the New York Times, but to get his story on the record before somebody else started telling his story on his behalf, but exaggerating it or distorting it in the direction they wanted.
Nelson was promoted to Washington bureau chief of the LA Times in 1975 and often appeared on TV for Washington Week in Review. But he never forgot his roots in the South. His memoir, Scoop, The Evolution of a Southern Reporter, which his wife Barbara Matusow completed and edited, was published in 2012, 3 years after his death in 2009 at age 80. The book provided a unique window into some of the most momentous periods in Southern and U.S. history. The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Jack Nelson into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
I want to say congratulations to Jack and his family and friends who have joined us this evening. I'm going to welcome all the way from LA, Kevin Merida, executive editor of the Los Angeles Times, to speak on his behalf.
Well, it's great being here. First of all, that that documentary stole some of my material, but I'm going to run it back. It's great to be here, and this has been really a wonderful evening. I want to just pay a little homage to Jack's family right there and let them get some proper applause there at that table, Jack's son and grandson and others. So they're right there. And two of my colleagues, Doyle McManus was a star in that doc, who knew Jack for 30 years and worked with him and took over the bureau after the Washington Bureau, after Jack left it, the handoff, is here today. He's a columnist, and also Jenny Jarvie, who is our Atlanta-based correspondent and tremendous correspondent. I think Jack would be proud of her work. So Jack Nelson lived an extraordinary life and had a brilliant career as a journalist and prolific author, a career to be admired and awed by, with a nickname to be envied, Scoop. Who doesn't want that nickname? He was the son of a South, of course, which he repped proudly, grew up poor in Talladega, Alabama. During the Depression, his family moved to Biloxi, Mississippi when he was in high school, and Biloxi's Daily Herald was his first journalism job. After he spotted a want ad that read, "General assignment reporter wanted, knowledge of sports desired." They gave the kid a chance, and as Jack wrote in his memoir, Scoop, The Evolution of a Southern Reporter, it beat the job he had working as a painter's helper at an Air Force base, quote, "going ahead of the painter," as he put it, with a handkerchief wrapped around my face, brushing away dirt and cobwebs from under the eaves of barracks. From these humble beginnings, Jack became a titan of our profession, a legend for real. He won the 1960 Pulitzer Prize for local reporting at the Atlanta Constitution for exposing abuses at Georgia's largest mental facility. He joined the Los Angeles Times in 1965, recruited by publisher Otis Chandler to help transform the Times into one of the nation's foremost dailies, which happened. Jack proceeded to make a national reputation for himself and the Times, as that doc showed, vigorously covering the civil rights movement and breaking major stories in the process. Jack's first byline in the LA Times came on February 17, 1965, from Selma, Alabama. The headline, "Fist Swing in Alabama Vote Drive." His lead, 2 white civil rights workers were beaten, and a Negro minister from Atlanta was slugged by Sheriff James G. Clark here Tuesday as the voter registration drive led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. erupted into violence for the first time in more than a week. It's a pretty good Chris lead. Julian Bond, the late civil rights leader, I know Atlantans know him, in praising Jack's memoir, said Jack was among a small group of journalists, quote, "who told the country what the South was really like, at risk to his own life and limb." Jack went on to distinguish himself in the Times even more with his Watergate reporting. Woodward and Bernstein deservedly get most of the attention for Watergate. I got a chance to work with Bob at the Washington Post for many years. But Jack racked up some important scoops of his own, including his exclusive interview with Alfred Baldwin, the ex-FBI agent hired by Nixon White House operatives, who witnessed the Watergate burglary from across the street. Jack was fierce, among the toughest investigative reporters in the country. His 8-month investigation into a shootout between police and Klansmen in Meridian, Mississippi, that revealed the FBI's role in the sting operation and how it was bankrolled, infuriated FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover and led him on a sustained smear campaign against Jack. Quote, "The Jackal Nelson is to be given nothing," Hoover wrote in an internal FBI memo, and this was Jack, who had sources in the FBI at the time. And this, "Jack Nelson is, quote, a lice-covered ferret," Hoover wrote. My colleague Doyle, who just mentioned, described Jack this way, Quote, he was a reporter's reporter, fearless, tireless, relentless. Officials high and low complained that he never took no for an answer. He demanded facts, insisting that the public, in the form of the Los Angeles Times, had a right to know what he was trying to find out. His interviewing style was direct and sometimes blunt, and when necessary, about an inch shy of bullying. If he thought he was getting the runaround, he said so. All he wanted to be was an investigative reporter, not a pundit, much less an executive. He believed the purpose of journalism was to uncover the truth, especially when government officials were trying to hide it. Jack Nelson was also a generous colleague. With his sources and his time, a mentor and a role model all at once, especially the younger journalists on the way up. He was a defender and protector of our craft. Now, journalism has stood the test of time. All of us know that in this room. You know, our profession has been bullied and threatened and demonized, but we're still here. It's essential for democracy and has braved everything thrown at it. And it's journalists like Jack Nelson we can thank as we still fight for it. I am proud that I get to lead the news organization that Jack Nelson helped to put on the map. It's an honor. Because we all need inspiration to keep doing what we do. Everybody in this room who's a journalist. And this night itself is inspiring. So give ourselves an applause. Like, give everybody an applause. And now I want to welcome to the stage Barbara Matusow, Jack's wife, and a distinguished journalist in her own right, to accept the honor of Jack's induction into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
Good evening. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here to receive this prestigious award on behalf of my late husband of 35 years. It would have been a really meaningful night for him, too, for a number of reasons. First of all, to have his colleagues, Kevin, where is Kevin? and Doyle, to have come all this way to honor him. Also, I think he would have been tickled to death to know that all 8 of his grandchildren, plus a great-grandchild, were here tonight. I think you should all stand and take a quick bow. I think also it would have been very meaningful because coming from the Atlanta Press Club, this was, after all, the city and the paper that put him on the map. You know, he was, as I say, already known in Atlanta. He was really well known, and that came home to me. He hadn't even been in Atlanta for several years. We'd be on the street in downtown Atlanta sometimes, and people would come up and say, "Oh, that series that you did on the crooked sheriffs in, you know, whatever city, or the expose of the terrible conditions at Milledgeville State Hospital." People remembered it, and they remembered it because he had an impact. He was really a celebrity before newsmen were celebrities. I used to be amazed, I think, how do they know who he is? Because in those days, there really weren't any talk shows, and journalists mostly worked for newspapers, and their names and faces weren't necessarily that well known. But he was very well known in these parts. As a reporter, Jack was positively ferocious in his drive to be first. His rivals on the civil rights beat, tyros like Claude Sitton, Carl Fleming, and Gene Roberts, could all attest to his zeal. And by the way, if those names aren't terribly familiar to you, I recommend that you read Hank Klibanoff's book, The Race Beat, which is story of the journalists' contributions to the civil rights movement. And there's a lot of good stories in there, so if you haven't read it, you should. As I mentioned, he was very intent on being first. And I'm sure there was some ego involved in that. But it was also a belief of his that being first meant probably being best and probably learning more about the story than others. His other really touchstone was accuracy. He believed, and he said many, many times, there is not the room for the smallest error, particularly when it comes to investigative reporting. Only the truth would do. That dictum is just as timely today, maybe even more so, now that the truth has been undermined by this chorus of those howling fake news. In today's climate, accuracy is more important than ever. So I think awards like this, which recognize talent and dedication and great reporting, are extremely important because they help keep the best practices of journalism alive. I can tell you honestly that Jack would have been extremely proud to have been one of the 5 named here tonight. All people of talent and dedication, all great reporters. Thank you very much for the Press Club and the indefatigable Julia Boyd for making this event possible.
Congratulations again to Jack and his family and friends who have joined us this evening. Give them another round of applause. And now for our final tribute this evening. I had the pleasure of working with our next honoree for a short time. And he would be the anchor and introduce me out in the field. And he was so smooth that sometimes I'd miss my cue because I was listening to him. I was like, man, I wish I was that good. Our next honoree this evening, Mr. Scott Slade.
Well, hey, it's Scott Slade, Atlanta's Morning News here on WSB Radio. Welcome. It's the way more Metro Atlantans start their day.
With 53 years in the business, Scott Slade is Georgia Radio. For decades, WSB Radio listeners have counted on Scott as a trusted news anchor they can believe in.
You're getting everything you can possibly need from Scott Slade as you're listening to the morning shows, when you're listening to interviews. And he's someone who both sides of the aisle trust. You know, how many interviews has he done with Republicans and Democrats where you're getting brand new news at him? So you're getting authenticity, but you're also getting authority from Scott Slade.
Time is 8:57.
Listeners say his voice is the soundtrack of their lives. His familiar tone as recognizable on the morning commute as it is in primetime interviews with Governor Brian Kemp.
Governor, broad goals for this upcoming session here. I'm curious what you think the theme should be.
And Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
How do you feel about the security of the system, the voting system, and the database itself? Is it secure?
Yeah, yes, it is secure.
That's because Scott Slade has the ear of the community.
He's very involved in the community, but any and everybody, when Scott calls, picks up the phone. All of our senators picks up the phone when Scott calls. Governor Kemp picks up the phone when Scott calls. The mayor picks up the phone when Scott calls. Whoever you are in local government, at whatever level you are, when Scott Slade calls, they pick up the phone. And so that makes him so in tune with the community because he can reach out and ask the questions that normal people want asked, but only Scott has the access to actually ask it.
Scott has received many awards, including his first as a teenage journalist in 1971. And years later, the National Association of Broadcasters Marconi Award as Best Radio Personality in America, and the Georgia Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
Scott Slade and Scott's Voice have been a mainstay of broadcast journalism in Georgia for decades. We are all grateful to Scott Slade for his work informing the public, asking tough questions of leaders, and bringing a smile to our faces. Thank you, Scott.
Still, colleagues describe him as modest and kind, with a strong work ethic and a fun side. That makes his radio programs a favorite of music fans and political buffs alike.
He is an animal owner and he is a pet lover. We disagree sometimes about our commitment to cats. I'm possibly more of a cat fan than he is, but he's got one who's got quite a bit of a personality. He's got a dog right now that is close to his heart. He has an interest in travel. And he has a real, Scott was a rock and roll DJ way back in the day. I don't know if you can ever persuade him to show pictures of what he used to look like when he was doing rock radio, but he has an old-fashioned rock sensibility.
From coverage of 9/11 to Snowmageddon, to his charitable work to fight childhood cancer, raising millions of dollars through WSB Radio Carathon, Scott Slade is a vital part of the fabric of Atlanta. His emotional sign-off at WSB earlier this year included a wish for the future of journalism.
Please, please, please stop the erosion of local media. Whether it's your local paper, your local radio station, your local TV station, even your local blogger, please support them. Read, watch, listen, interact. If you want to move your business ahead, remember Ted Turner's advice. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise. We would love to have you. The Founding Fathers thought it was important to put First Amendment guarantees of free speech in the Constitution because they knew it was vital for a Fourth Estate to hold the powerful accountable and tell compelling stories to generate public response to needs. So please, if you lose the local voice, you lose the people who are going to be most able to examine what's going on around you. And that is the number one news value, along with oddity, curiosity, universality. It is local. What is happening down the street is most important. And this is a local radio station. I hope you'll continue to support it and all the other local media. We have some terrific outlets here in this town. And as for me, it's not over. I'm looking forward to getting some rest and then begin a next chapter with WSB. Walter Cronkite retired from the CBS Evening News in 1981 and worked another 25 years. I don't know if I'm going to go that long, but you'll hear from me again, and I hope you will be around for it.
The Atlanta Press Club is proud to induct Scott Slade into the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame.
Scott, you really used to look like Mick Jagger. Really? I'd like to welcome Candace Presley, Director, Community and Public Affairs, Cox Media Group, to speak on Scott's behalf.
Well, good evening, everyone. Tonight marks a truly special occasion. A night when we've come together not only to mark these very significant career milestones for an impressive group of journalists, but also to honor a deeper calling, a mission ingrained in our very souls. It's about educating. It's about informing. It's about entertaining our audiences, the viewers, the listeners, and the readers whose daily support fuels our passion. You've already heard a little bit about the sacrifice that comes with the work that we do. For extraordinary individuals like my friends Scott Slade and Robin Meade, sacrifice means surrendering precious hours of sleep. And guys, before Scott took the reins as the voice of Atlanta's Morning News on News 95.5 WSB, he was still working those awful hours, soaring above us in a split shift, safeguarding our daily commute, delivering traffic information from the WSB Skycopter. But first, let's rewind back to early 1991, a time when I'd only been in the business about 4 or 5 years, fresh from the Grady College at the University of Georgia. I'd now found a way to talk my way into a job in early mornings. And our morning show at that time was a full-service, middle-of-the-road AM radio station. Yes, AM radio for the younger people in the room. And we still, at that time, were playing 4 records an hour. That show at that time was hosted by another legendary broadcaster. You might have heard of Skinny Bobby Harper, Sam Hall and Dave Folk, and we did indeed at the station call them Sam and Dave, delivered our news 30 minutes of each hour while Scott was orchestrating the chaos that is and always has been Atlanta traffic. But as Operation Desert Storm unfolded in the Middle East, the leaders of our station knew that there was a need for a more news-focused morning program. And I remember Bob Neal saying that, Scott Slade, he's radio's Peter Jennings. So out of the chopper and into the anchor chair he slid, sacrificing very, very valuable sleep for the next 32 years to wake us up with his warm, comforting baritone voice, telling Atlanta if the world was safe that day, if the traffic was its usual crazy, and even predicting with the weather good hair days for the ladies. For a solid decade, as Scott and I worked together on Atlanta's Morning News, as I was producing the show at the time, we owned what we called a perfect 10 in the ratings. And if anybody knows anything, and I know many of the broadcasters in the room do, y'all, we live and die by these numbers. We depend upon all of the listeners and the readers and the viewers each and every day. And at that time, nobody had a 10 share of the audience in morning radio. Scott Slade did. Every book for 10 years. But now, that's the trust that the community put in him, his unyielding leadership, and the unwavering reliability of the news and the information he delivered. That is why Atlanta woke up with and continued each and every day to depend on our Scott Slade. But here's the moment where his narrative transcends news headlines, and we learn that he's not just about the news, he's about heart, community, and making a difference. If we flash back to the year 2001, Dave Mazzaros, who's our general manager at the time, he gathered a bunch of the radio station leaders in a conference room with a challenge. He challenged us to identify a cause that we as a station and Atlanta as a community could rally around. So of course, the talk master, Neil Bortz, pitched Angel Flight. He was a pilot. Clark Howard rallied for a number of his amazing charities. And then right over there in the corner was my buddy Scott Slade. And he delivered this impassioned speech about children and their battles against pediatric cancer at the Aflac Cancer Center. And his words moved us. Even today still, 1 of every $4, I'm always gonna get Sarah the big 3, 1 out of every $4 in cancer research goes to pediatric cancer. So that's when the WSB Radio Carathon was born. From a humble $600,000 that we raised that first year to a staggering 1.9, I believe actually maybe more than $2 million in just 37 hours this past July. In over 23 years, it has been more than $32 million supporting critical research and helping those brave patients and their families. All because Scott Slade posed that poignant question, who can say no to helping a child with cancer? That, dear friends, encapsulates Scott Slade, a man whose heart echoes the heartbeat of this city, dedicated to this community, and fervently passionate about the art of storytelling. So friends, please join me in offering a resounding cheer and heartfelt congratulations to my dear friend of more than 30 years, and Scott, I am not that old, and two-time Marconi Award recipient, and now esteemed member of the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame, everyone, Scott Slade. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, I will. Smile, McKay, you reckon the traffic is thinned out yet? Slightly. Oh my goodness, I am so blown away. I feel like I'm walking among giants in this incredible class, the Hall of Fame for the Atlanta Press Club. I do love Candace Presley. Thank you, my friend, for those wonderful words. You know, Candace and I do go way back to the beginning days of Atlanta's Morning News, and she told you she produced the show from day one in 1991. And something she didn't mention, and I wonder if you still remember this. Candace and I used to have a little prayer meeting in the hallway outside the radio newsroom before every show. Literally. We bow our heads. Our prayer only took a few seconds. It went something like this. Lord, please help us find the right words to tell the truth to the most people to do the most good this morning. I have no idea where Atlanta's Morning News placed on the Almighty's to-do list that day, but it didn't hurt to ask. And now this night, 32 years later, I'm humbled and thrilled to even be considered for the Atlanta Press Club Hall of Fame. Joining journalists I've admired and respected and even emulated as my mentors by example. And I'm old enough where a lot of these Hall of Fame members, I was reading their stuff when it was new. It was wonderful to be included in that number with the likes of the Ships, the Galloways, and the Pruitts, and journalists so famous and ingrained in the heart of their community, you could call them by their first names, Monica, Celestine. People like Furman Bisher and Aubrey Morris, my dear, dear late friend, who was part of the first draft of history during the Civil Rights Movement. I'll never forget the stories Aubrey told me, Nicole, of going downtown on the back of a pickup truck with a huge AC-powered Ampex tape recorder to record the first words of Martin Luther King Jr. that were ever broadcast on Atlanta radio. The phone rang off the hook in the newsroom, and he said, "Get used to it. He's going to make a lot of news." And I want to riff on something maybe that Robin mentioned just a few minutes ago. You know, we didn't get here by ourselves. No, we really didn't. And if I started naming all the people who helped me and taught me and showed me how to do things right, whether they were in management or in the news trenches, we would be here all night. So I won't keep you all night. But I would like to borrow some words from Fred Rogers, and I'd like your help with this. The night he received a Lifetime Emmy Achievement Award 26 years ago, Fred said, "Oh, it's a beautiful night in this neighborhood. So many people have helped me to come to this night. Some of you are here. Some are far away. Some are even in heaven. All of us have special ones who have loved us into being. Would you just take along with me 10 seconds to think of the people who've helped you become who you are, those who have cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life? 10 seconds of silence. I'll watch the time for you. Whomever you've been thinking about, how pleased they must be to know the difference you feel they've made. Thanks for that, Fred. Congratulations to Patricia, Corey, Robin, in the memory of Jack Nelson. It's an honor to be here with you. And special thanks to my family and friends, especially my wife of 48 years, Debbie. Yeah, she did put up a grumpy Scott at the end of every week. You know, right? Getting up at 1:30 in the morning, that is no hayride, Robin. That is no hayride. I also want to say a special thanks to my family of coworkers at WSB Radio and the Cox Media Group. Thank you to my friends at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and the Aflac Cancer Center for the life-saving work you do and the chance to tell your story to our listeners every year. I'm so proud to be of you and with you. Please keep the fires of truth burning here in Atlanta. I will remember with great appreciation this night for the rest of my days. Thank you.
He is the smooth operator. Give him another round of applause. Scott Slade, everyone. So you want to spend another 4 hours together? Before we go this evening, social media, and talk about how wonderful this evening is. ATL Press Club, ATL Press Club. Please tweet about it, go on Instagram, and just tell everyone just how wonderful this evening really was. What a fantastic group of inductees this year. Congratulations to you all. Another round of applause, please. Next, I would like to introduce Jewel Wicker, Atlanta Press Club Treasurer, co-chair of the APC Internship Committee and freelance entertainment and culture reporter, to talk about the Atlanta Press Club Internship Program and give the final remarks. Have a wonderful and safe evening.
Hello, hello, and I promise no one else will come up on this stage after I am done, so that is the good news. I just wanted to congratulate all of the inductees one more time, and thank you all for coming out tonight to this program. It's always just such an honor to see everyone who gets inducted. I would be remiss before we end to not take this opportunity to talk about the future of journalism that keeps coming up again and again in all of the speeches. I really loved how Corey put it, the importance of having people who see you right before you get up on this stage and get inducted into something like the Hall of Fame. That is important. So if you could please donate your time, your money, anything that you are able to do to support the Atlanta Press Club's Internship Committee. We pick about 5 to 7 students every year to work at publications like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, WABE. I interned at Atlanta Magazine when I was a college student, and it is an incredible opportunity for our young journalists to get their feet in the door. We had an inductee last year who was actually an intern from the Atlanta Press Club. So it's incredibly valuable. So just wanted to remind everybody to take an opportunity to support the Atlanta Press Club, but also our internship committee if you are able to do so. And tell you all, I hope you have a great night and not much traffic on your way home. So thank you again all for coming out, and congrats again. And if you are an inductee, if you could step to the side and take one last photo, we promise we will leave you alone after that. So thank you all and have a good night.